Welcome to the Beyond Consulting podcast. My name is Christian Moldenhauer, and I'm founder and managing director of expertpowerhouse, Europe's leading platform for independent consultants, program managers, and experts. Thanks for joining today. In this episode, I have the pleasure of speaking with Katelyn Jones. She's head of strategy at AGRANA, the global sugar, starch, and fruit company headquartered in Vienna. Katelyn has built an impressive career at the intersection of strategy, transformation, and complex agribusiness, shaped not only by her work at AGRANA, but also by her earlier work at BayWa, where she navigated significant market and organizational challenges. In this episode, we dive into how companies can successfully bring strategy in-house, the evolving role of strategy teams, when it makes sense to engage external consultants, and how leaders like Katelyn help navigating their organizations through the shifting dynamics of the European food and agribusiness landscape. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Beyond Consulting. We have a great session ahead today with Katelyn Jones. It's my pleasure, Katelyn, to have you here. Katelyn is the head of strategy at AGRANA, and we're going to talk a bit about the agriculture business strategy today, and also where consultants can add value in that business. Katelyn, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Christian. I'm very excited to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, my absolute pleasure. And Katelyn, let's get started right in. If you could maybe give us a brief intro about yourself and also about AGRANA, how you basically went into the strategy there, and what are you doing at the moment?
Absolutely. Thanks a lot. So, as my name probably suggests, I'm not from Austria. I'm originally from the US, born in Austin, and grew up kind of all over the place. And after I graduated from university, I moved to Munich, Germany, where I started my career in strategy. So I was working in BayWa AG. It's a big agricultural company, but I don't have an agricultural background. I studied political science and got my MBA later from ESCP in Paris. And yeah, started in strategy at the company, but really got to love the agribusiness. BayWa is a conglomerate, so I have a lot of different business areas. Started in strategy, then I had the opportunity to be assistant to the CEO, which was a really, really exciting time. Then I moved on and did a stint in New Zealand for 3 years, where I was working in a subsidiary company in the fruit sector, looking after strategy and the development of new categories. So that was a really fantastic experience as well. And then I came back to Munich in 2021, where I was managing director of BayWa Global Produce, which is the fruit division of BayWa. Also a really exciting time. We did a lot of developments, and then BayWa started going through some issues, which maybe not the focus of this podcast today, but I got a call from a headhunter and was asked if I wanted to head up the strategy department at AGRANA in Vienna. So my family and I moved here, just a couple of months ago now. I started 1st of September, so I'm very fresh in the business. But AGRANA is also agribusiness. It's a similar kind of background to BayWa, so also with cooperative roots, cooperative structures, and moving from fruit now into AGRANA. And what is AGRANA? It basically has two business areas. The one is the commodities and specialties business, where we are a producer of sugar and starch. So I didn't know too much about this before I started, but really sugar beet production. And we've got a really interesting factory here in Tulln, which is outside of Vienna, and other sugar factories throughout Eastern Europe in particular. The starch business are really making starch products from corn, wheat, and potatoes, so pretty classic. And then we have our food and beverage solutions businesses, which include the fruit sector. So this is like fruit preparations, but it goes a lot further than that. This is a really growing business, super interesting, servicing the dairy sector, but also beverages and the like. And then we have our Austria juice business, which is a juice business, obviously, but they also have a really big flavors and added value business as well.
Wow, there's so much experience here, and you've seen it all internationally, and now at AGRANA with all the segments you just mentioned. Probably, those are all products that the consumer uses on a day-to-day basis. So you all eat sugar on a daily basis. You all have starches in your diet. Yeah? And you could think about it like, you buy it in the supermarket maybe, or some companies buy it somewhere else. It's there, it's sugar. It's also growing in the field. So what's the deal about it? Like it's a, pretty stable thing. So can you tell us a bit about like what's actually driving the agriculture, the agribusiness sector, and what's going on behind the scenes a little?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think if you think about sugar, and AGRANA is a listed company, so I'm not telling any secrets, of course. But the sugar sector, especially in Europe, has been really under pressure. We had the quota system that I think ended in about 2018, 2019, and basically since then, farmers are able to produce as much sugar beets as they want. And so it's basically liberalized the market. But as you know, the sugar consumption is going down in general. People aren't, when you think about in the past, someone taking their coffee and everyone putting in 2 sugars, and now, I don't know, I would say the majority of people probably aren't doing that anymore. Nevertheless, sugar is, of course, in a lot of industrial products. So the demand is still there, but supply has gone up significantly in Europe and demand has not matched that. So prices are really low. Sugar is also listed on markets. So there's a world market price, and you get a premium by producing in Europe. Nevertheless, it's pretty simple, right? Supply and demand aren't really matching. So that means that we have to really focus on being a really low cost operations. AGRANA closed 2 factories, one in Austria, one in Czech Republic earlier this year. And I think it's hard to be competitive in this market, but that's really what our focus on is. Being a lean producer, being really efficient, bringing energy costs down, etc. In Austria as well, we struggle with having probably the highest or maybe the second highest energy costs in continental Europe. So this is also, of course, a really big issue. There's things that we can do, and decarbonizing the businesses is also a focus. On the starch sector, I mean, again, with commodities in general, we have you have corn and wheat are the 2 main products that we're using for producing starch, potatoes as well, but this is more local. And corn and wheat are also traded on international grain trading, the MATE, for example, in Paris. And so, here as well, we are dealing with prices that we don't really have a lot of control of. And so even if you have supply and demand, maybe like, for example, the supply in Europe is down. So you think, okay, price is going to go up, but that's not necessarily the case, right? Because you're looking at a really global business. And commodities in general, we're competing with companies that are in areas that can produce cheaper, right? Cheaper labor costs, etc. So for us here, it's really focusing on optimizing the commodity side, and then also growing our specialties businesses that we have. There are sectors that are growing, and really looking at how we can add value to the commodities. And then on the fruit side, this is a really close to the customer business. So we have a huge new product development team that's really trying to understand what the customer wants, developing new products. For me, it was really fascinating visiting our site here in Austria, Kleisdorf, and seeing the really innovative products that these guys are coming up with.
Can you give us one example of a crazy or super interesting fruit product that you're excited about?
I mean, if you look at, so I can't obviously tell you what's in the pipeline, but if you go to the grocery store here in Austria, so for example, a lot of the yogurts that you see, they have every season there's new flavors coming out. So I don't know, like I think they had this summer, they had like ice cream flavors, but for yogurts. So I can't remember the names, but think of your favorite ice cream flavor. So suddenly that's in a yogurt, and you show up to the grocery store and you think, oh, this is really interesting. You don't necessarily think about all the steps that it took, but there were product developers putting together different recipes, hundreds and thousands of recipes to be able to get the final product to you on the shelf. And I think in general, that's for me really what's fascinating about agribusiness is once you know a bit more about what's happening behind the scenes, you really appreciate more, like even the sugar that you're buying in the package at the store is like you see the process, you understand how it comes from the sugar beet into the product. And we say at AGRANA, we say AGRANA inside, because it's inside AGRANA's inside products that you're using every day. You just don't necessarily know it because we're a B2B business. Yeah.
Yeah, and I can relate to that. I think it gives a lot of purpose also then when you see those products basically out in the market. And
yeah, and I think for me it's fascinating as well, really, when you visit the farmers and you see them, with their passion for growing the products, and then you go to the production side, you see how these are transformed into the next stage, and then of course these are also transformed again, right, at our customers. So we're servicing all types of customers that, from dairy to bakery to personal care, pharmaceuticals, etc. And then they're obviously doing something with our product and adding another piece, and then we're using that product at the end of the day.
Katelyn, we talked a bit about the business, the trends in the market, and of course, as you also mentioned, there are huge challenges, of course, in each of the segments, huge opportunities also. And you're, of course, now starting fresh in strategy, building up the strategy team. And there's always this question around like, how much strategy do you do in-house? How much do you rely on externals helping with the strategy from now and then? How to bring it into execution? What's your view on how a strategy department, strategy team should operate?
Yeah, I think that's a really key point. So I'm responsible for strategy, transformation, and M&A. These are the three pillars, I guess, of my role. And for strategy in particular, I mean, for me, strategy has to be done by the company, right? You can bring in consultants to support you on specific pieces, but at the end of the day, you have to own your strategy, and you have to, the knowledge is within the business. So what can consultants do? They can help you, let's say, along the process, along the way, to figure out what areas you want to focus on and things like this. But from my point of view, and the way that I like to approach strategy is really, both from inside out and outside in, right? So we understand, our people understand the products the best. Nobody can come in and tell us more probably about sugar or starch than we already know, right? Because, we have the people on the front lines. We have a global business. We really understand these things. So from my point of view, what is the strategy team doing? We're really looking at enabling a strategy to happen from taking the information out of the people that are doing this on a daily basis, right? So they're busy doing sales and purchasing and production. So it's really picking out what are the key points that we need to really develop a strategy, to understand where we want to grow in certain parts of the business, to have this outside view while being inside the company. And consultants, of course, will always play a role, because at the end of the day, not every business, especially not AGRANA, but we're not a huge corporation with 100,000 employees. We can't have a strategy team of 20 people. This wouldn't make sense, right? And even then, you depending on the projects that you're working on, you need different expertise. So there will always be a space for consultants, but nevertheless, I think the strategy processes really need to be run from us internally.
And now, I mean, you see some companies that have exactly this 20 people strategy department. You have some that don't have it at all and rely on, strategy consultants all the time, like a outsourced strategy almost. Yeah. You say it's in-house, in your view. What does it take to build up a good strategy team? And when do you draw on external support for capacity or for expertise?
Yeah. So my team, we work really flexibly. So I have, like I said, I have these three topics, and for me, it's really important that I don't have someone that's just working on one thing, but that we can be more flexible. So of course, the M&A team, they're M&A experts, but also they are market experts and they're financial experts, and they really understand how to make strategies as well. So I think, it's about having flexibility in what you're doing with your team members and giving them the chance and the opportunity to hone new skills as well. And I found this has been really effective also. I mean, I've only been here for a couple of weeks, but let's say also in previous roles, for me, it's really important that everyone in the team has the feeling that, if they are able to do more, that they can do more. And then they always have opportunity to work in different areas. So I think this is really key. And I can't remember what's the second half of your question. You might have to repeat it.
No, I mean, you have this team, you have it standing. Yeah. When would you draw on external support? Would it be mostly when there is, let's say, sort of a specific expertise gap or so that you want to close. For example, on an M&A deal where you want to assess something and need to run a due diligence in very short time.
Of course, of
Or
course.
is it mostly then, of course, we see like all models happening, of course, for external capacity simply because you have this 3-6 month project and simply 2 people or 3 people in your team, but you need a 4th or 5th or 6th person to really finish that on time. When would you draw on externals?
Yeah, so I mean, we do it all the time, right? So I mean, there's a lot of different options. So like you said, sometimes we'll have projects where we say this really needs a full-time resource and I can't give that for my team, right? So I can't have one person working only on one thing for the next 3 years. This is going to block me from doing so many other projects. So this is a typical time. And we do this also currently, and we will continue doing this in the future as required, right? And I think, this comes back to when you think about corporate strategy and let's say program management. So we look at all of the strategic projects that we have across the business. And I say, okay, my team in total is like 6 people, right? Doing 3 different topics. There's no way that we can run every single project that's in the company. So either you say, we're going to prioritize, some things we're not going to do, or you say there's such a strong business case to do all of these projects, or most of them, or some of them. And that's why it's worth bringing on external resource. And then this is absolutely key, is finding the right people that are really motivated to contribute to the company. And I think this is the struggle that you have sometimes with, let's say, freelancers, because I know this is also your business, is really finding the right people that are gonna fully commit to us for a certain amount of time and are really motivated to do that. And also identifying where we want to make sure that the knowledge is not lost. So this is also key. So identifying certain projects or certain areas of expertise where we say, this is a capability that we don't necessarily need to have in-house. And so it's absolutely fine to bring on somebody externally versus saying we're struggling, we need to fill a gap quickly. I don't think this is the right way. Then I would rather say, hey, let's try and fill it with an internal resource, or let's hire an additional FTE, because we really want to keep this knowledge within the business.
How about those models where you maybe have an external trainer almost to bring in that knowledge, and you have some people basically learning that? Have you tried something similar like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think especially, an example is coming to mind when we are implementing a new tool or a new software or something like this, and we need a project manager that's going to bring it in. So then in that case, I say it makes more sense to bring in an expert from, I don't know, SAP or Microsoft or whoever, or even if it's not someone from that company, but somebody that's done that before, who's really, that's their focus, and they're going to be able to train up the people in the business to use that. I think that's a perfect example. Absolutely.
So you mentioned like it's difficult to find, not to find them, but to find the person that commits really to AGRANA and aligns with the business goals. What's sort of like when you select people to support you? What is it that you're looking for? And I'm thinking that more, of course, also in terms of our listeners today. Yeah, if you're a consultant, yeah, what would be sort of like things that would make you say, let's bring this person in, versus that are deal breakers?
Yeah, I think that's a tricky one, right? Because every consultant, so correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not from consulting. So, but I think every consultant, especially freelancers, they're always looking for their next job, right? So for me, it's really important, and they will get another job, right? So for me, it's really important that somebody that's coming in is going to really clearly deliver and excel on the point that we are looking for, but also is going to identify where they can't support us. And I think this is for me really key. And it's one of the best things that I can hear is when a freelancer or consultant says, listen, this is how much I'm doing, and this part, I could do it, but actually I shouldn't do it. And this is for me really, that for me is kind of the best solution, is someone that's really honest about their capabilities, but also about something where they say, you know what, yes, I could do this project for you, but actually I think you should be doing it in-house, because this is a capability that your business doesn't have, and they should have it. And that's something that's a hard ask, and I do understand that, but those kind of people will always get additional business with somebody like me, because they're giving me exactly what I need to hear.
Yeah. No, I think it's what you say is like it's honesty about like what they think is best for the company, right? It's something I hear from time to time also when you have like large consulting companies that in general, like it's a big prejudice, I think, of the consulting industry that you have a project running and then of course it never ends. And
Never
people
ends.
try to extend and extend and extend, and along the way there is more topics that come up. Yeah. But that is exactly sort of, I think, where you have this honest advice of a freelancer or even a larger consulting team, where you say like, "Look, this is what we're tasked to, what is the scope, and this is what maybe could be done, but we should not do it. You should do it in-house."
100%. I think this is where consultants can get a bad rap. And I mean, I think we've all worked with these kinds of people or organizations in the past where, suddenly you have project after project after project, and you have to ask yourself, what is really the scope? And for me, it's kind of a shame because consultants can be extremely valuable, and they are extremely valuable for really specific and clear projects, right? But then for me, the project should end. And then if we have an additional project, then we're happy to start over again, right? But I do think sometimes we run into, and this is where for me, like in-house versus external, the strategy processes from my point of view, this is my personal view, should be run in-house. And projects as they come up, absolutely, we will always use external support, or we will often use external support if required, for sure.
And I find it super fascinating what you say. Maybe for our executive listeners also, because you have seen so many transformation programs, and you describe this, project after project that you could go into. What would be a way to mitigate that risk? I mean, you mentioned, look, if it's very clearly scoped, but then maybe, a couple of months in, things get a bit blurry or some other stuff happens somewhere else. So the focus changes also along the way. How can executives basically keep that focus on consulting engagements in an ideal world to really have this clear deliverable at the end and then see if they extend or not?
I mean, I think that's where you have to rely on your strategy team, right? So that's also my role here, is to be able to evaluate and say, okay, guys, are we on track? Are they delivering what they were supposed to deliver? Especially if you're the CEO of the company, it also doesn't really matter to you, right? You just want to see the results happening. And that's where strategy departments can really add a lot of value, even with external consultants, is ensuring that they're delivering what they were supposed to deliver. And again, like, I have absolutely nothing against having super long projects or follow-on projects if it makes sense. And I think that that's something that the strategy team and of course the business leads then together can decide who's best placed to do it. But again, that's the role of strategy, to really continuously keep looking at what they're doing, and not just with consultants in general. This is what we have to do every single day, is ask ourselves, are we working on the right things? And if not, then we should stop working on those things and work on the things that we think are going to be adding more value to the business. And I think every good manager and executive should be doing this daily, weekly, monthly. That's part of the role.
Well said, Katelyn. Thanks so much for joining in. Thanks for sharing your perspective on AGRANA, on strategy consultants, on the industry. It's been my pleasure. Thanks a lot for being here today.
Thanks, Christian.